Alright everyone, we start off today with another Biden gaffe, although it's not entirely clear whether it's a gaffe, but I'm going to assume that it's one because he's completely incompetent, ignorant about guns, of course, number two, and he has Alzheimer's, so we're kind of used to this. Link in the description, not archived because it's a video clip. Joe was asked about gun control, his thoughts on firearms. And he started talking about ammunition types, and he probably shouldn't have done this because he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about for one reason or another. Now, I'm going to analyze this first from the non-tongue-in-cheek perspective, then we'll get into the funny perspective, because what he says is off the wall. Again, please do watch this. It's from Disclosed TV. They do a pretty good job of exposing some of the crazier things that leftoids and libtards are up to at any given time. Joe was asked about ammo types, and he said to the effect of, well, if you get shot with a .22, we can probably dig it out of you. You may survive. And it's technically correct. .22 is not technically a serviceable caliber for self-defense. Generally, you hit someone 5 or 6 times, they might look like a pincushion, but unless you hit a vital organ or their eye or something, they'd probably survive. Doesn't have a lot of stopping power. That begins at 380, and that's tenuous at best as well. Then he starts talking about 9mm bullets, and he says, well, the .22, we can dig it out of your lung. The 9mm will just blow the lung right out of the body. Now, a well-placed shot with maybe a modified 9mm bullet, one designed specifically for penetrative purposes, yeah, it could probably blow a hole in your lung. That's not wrong. The problem is what I think that he meant, because AR-15s tend to be the boogeyman of the anti-gun phenomenon. I think that he was trying to refer to the 5.56 round. I think he was trying to refer to the AR-15. Because really banning the AR-15, of all weapons that you could ban, and not 50 caliber rifles, not 5.7, not any of a number of other platforms that use 5.56, just the AR-15 is the big buzz term boogeyman for gun violence, even though they're used in a minority of rifle-related deaths, and rifles are a minority of gun-related deaths, and homicides are a minority of gun deaths at large, and gun deaths and crimes being a minority of violent crime at large, including murders, despite the tiny proportion of all U.S. crimes involving rifles, especially AR platform rifles. That is the boogeyman that the leftoids keep harping on. They think that this is a winning strategy. Methinks that their hope is misplaced in this. I think he meant 5.56. And yes, a 5.56 round, rifle round, it's capable of killing. Yeah, it'd blow a chunk out of your lung too. I don't think he meant 9mm. I think that he got the two terms confused. But now let's assume that he actually is serious. He doesn't walk this back and say, well, I misspoke. I used the wrong caliber because I'm a fucking ignorant moron and know absolutely nothing about firearms and told people that they should just use a shotgun for home defense. Talk about overpenetration potentially under the circumstances. Let's assume that he's being serious, though. Well, I guess that escalated quickly. We were told that the liberals only wanted to ban the uber-scary assault rifles, which, assault rifles are already illegal for civilian use. 86 assault weapons? With a tax stamp and a huge amount of paperwork, if you can afford the price. I think there are still some out there. I know that there are older machine guns out there, Tommy guns and stuff. They're extremely expensive. I think the entry level, like if you want one that's kind of beat up and needs a bit of work, I think they start near 10K. So good luck. And by the way, good luck using it for a mass shooting, because without special training, the gun's going to work its way up because it's firing very quickly, and you probably won't hit much of anything at all. If you're going to do a mass shooting, that would be the least effective weapon to use. You're better off using a fucking revolver at that point. You'd probably kill more people. Here's the thing. If he is serious, if he doesn't walk this back or get challenged on it, effectively what you're saying is that the most common self-defense purpose handgun caliber is the new boogeyman. So again, that escalated quickly. We were assured, we're not coming to take your guns, we just want more regulations or a ban on the AR-15. Because it's the boogeyman gun. Now you're talking about half the Glocks, Smith & Wesson platform, Taurus, and so forth, handguns. 9mm can be used, of course, in other weapons. There are a handful of revolvers that use it. I think there are a handful of rifles now that use it. Mostly it's a handgun caliber. it will generally not blow the lung out of a person. It's not good for large game hunting. By the way, neither is 5.56. In a number of states, it's banned for deer hunting for a reason. You're going to be using a 50 cal or something like that. All of these spooky things that they talk about are spoken of out of sheer ignorance of firearms. They simply don't know anything about them. The problem is that a lot of the people that are in Congress as well, they were raised in upper middle class gated communities or in the penthouse class. They're the rich bitch kids. They're the mean girls and so forth, like AOC. They've never used a gun. If they have, they pose with it for show. It's like Phil Scott when he goes to the Vermont gun show. You think that he actually goes out hunting or anything like that? He's a multimillionaire who was born into relative wealth. He started his business and made millions at a fairly young age. He doesn't go out hunting or anything like that. He can wear his flannel shirt for show, but he's just a pussy. He's a poser. The same is true of Bananas Biden. Joe Bananas Biden doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to firearms. One thing we can say is that his ignorance of firearms predates his dementia. Where years and years ago is when he made his shotgun statement. He wasn't demented at that time. He was getting old, but he clearly didn't have Alzheimer's like he does now. I will give him a pass in the sense that I think that he just meant the 5.56 and didn't intend to refer to the 9mm. Part of that reason is because he then followed up and said it has no legitimate purpose for hunting and self-defense. Well, 9mm handgun is the standard for self-defense in the United States. There is most of the police use a 9mm handgun for self-defense. Well, normally they use it to ignore the school shooter while they're busy shooting up someone for having a little bit of marijuana, but it's standard issue. 9mm, 10mm handguns. That's the standard, is the standard. They're not using .380. They're not using .45 caliber. They're not using the old police revolvers. They're using a 9mm handgun. They're good. They're an intermediate weapon, an intermediate handgun caliber. It's not a hand rocket. I mean, you're not firing off a .44 Magnum, but it's got enough stopping power to be useful. It is the standard. When you follow it up with saying that it's not appropriate for self-defense purposes, we either have to assume that he had a dementia moment and he used the wrong caliber. He really meant to refer to a rifle caliber. Or that he really meant that and that he had maybe a non-dementia moment, but just an ignorance moment. Again, it's one of those situations where which possibility is worse? The sitting president of the U.S., who is tasked with defending the Constitution, yes, that includes the Second Amendment, is either now gunning for, pardon the pun, handgun calibers. It's no longer just scary rifle, it's your handgun as well, including most of the police handguns out there for a reason. He's either doing that or he's totally blissfully unaware of what he's even talking about and doesn't understand the difference between a 9mm and a 5.56. Very, very interesting times. It's sort of like that time that Obama expressed dismay over NSA spying and said he heard about it from CNN. And we were faced with a situation in which we had to roll our eyes and say either the president doesn't know what his own people are doing or he's straight up lying to the American people. It's a no-win situation. It's sort of like the Biden and nuke situation. Is Biden in control of the nukes? Well, that's scary. He's demented. He's also a warmonger. Or is he not? Well, then a cabal of people behind the scenes that we don't even know the names of half the time, they're the ones in charge of the nukes. I don't know which one is scarier. He might press the button accidentally. They might have him press the button on purpose. The fact is that 9mm bullets are the most useful for self-defense under general purposes. You're getting enough power, enough stopping power, but you're not getting massive over-penetration, and the weapon is relatively easy to use. There's a reason that it's the most common caliber in use, I believe, by a long sea mile, certainly for handguns. I think the 5.56, because of the popularity of sporting rifles, may be selling more, and the 22 and the 45 are up there, but it's extremely common. It's everywhere. I have a 9mm pistol. I have a Glock 17 and hundreds and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. I wish I had 10 times more because apparently that's now on the chopping block too. Just think about how much that Glock will be worth when Joe Biden comes for your guns. The other thing in closing that I would say is it's very, very funny when all of these anti-gun politicians say, we're not coming for your guns, we just want common sense gun reform. And then I see half of their constituents saying, yeah, take the guns. Well, that's a little bit ominous now, isn't it? By the way, Loria Blue Eyes, or whatever her name is on Twitter, was rambling about anti-gun proposals the other day, and I pledged that when I get back to the US I'll buy a gun in their name. I'm not sure if it's a he or a she, actually. Just a random follower account, someone who squats on the channel, basically like a reply guy sort of thing. You know that you've made it when someone parks on your channels and just rambles endlessly about 3 or 4 issues and constantly countermands what you say? And you know that they must have a child too, because it's basically any time of day. It's a little bit obsessive. That's about all. Peace out.